Hello, Dave. How you doing? This is my Goliath. I say it's mine. It's Owen Bush's currently still. I haven't bought it off of him yet. He's very kindly lent it to me. I've now decided I'm going to keep it as well as Massey. The belt drive on it is just, this is the motor that Owen had on. It was sat in the yard when Owen gave it to me. Deal was I could borrow it for a bit until I found myself one, get it running, and then sell it on for him once it was running sweet. But I've decided I'd like to keep it myself. Don't know what pulley size that is on the top. I'll measure it. It's a 8-pole motor, so whatever that is, 710 RPM. It's that big, 4.5 inch. Don't know. I've no idea what BPM it is at, but it's nice. It could probably be a bit faster. I've got a bigger one of these, but again, it's fine for what I do. It does slip very slightly. These I've seen them with flat belt pulleys on the top onto a flat belt drive. It slips very slightly. It screeches a bit. If you floor it from stationary, it'll screech for a fraction of a second as it slips. So I've got some belt spray, drive belt spray on here, but oil flicks over from that one every now and then onto here. I probably should have lined them up slightly differently, but I didn't think of that. Yeah, over here it's a bit oily, but it's not. It's fine. Not massively tight, but the drive isn't too critical. It's the clutch oiling that makes a difference. This was in a yard. It had a tarp over it, but it was in Owen's yard for some while. He had it running, and then didn't have space for it. Put it outside. When I got it, all of this linkage, this top linkage, was taken off for me to transport it because it was just so top heavy in the van. I just had a 3.5 tonne that moved in. But at the bottom of the clutch here, moisture had got in it. All of this was all really nice and greased up, but in here it was a bit dry. There was a puddle of rust at the bottom. So when I put it together, I greased the shit out of it. Or oiled it, I should say. Just 10W30, I think it was, just normal engine oil. Just try and wash it through as much as possible. The problem with that was that the capillary action was so great that it would stick on and stay on. So there was a few panic runs to the off button to turn it off and then manually release the clutch. My idea was to wash all the shit out with the oil, but the oil was just too thick. It didn't really work its way out. Obviously they're designed in such a way that they don't lose oil instantly. I then got some WD-40 with one of those little red hoses on. Don't know if I took this shoe off. That doesn't come off. Took something off over here. Got as much space between these two. Drowned it with WD-40. Then ran it. The WD-40 diluted and sort of washed out the engine oil. Then it started getting good. The thing that made the most difference, I think, though, was when I was sort of tuning it. I mean, it's taken months to get it right. You put a bit of oil in, and it takes a long time for it to, settle down and work its way out. I've disengaged this brake. This is the old. It's quite an old Goliath. I don't know when it was made, but it was one of the more original designs. This strap brake, where it's all the steel over the top, is bent and kinked. It was almost impossible to get these guys here. I'm sure these bits have got names, but I don't know what they are. To get those to release simultaneously on both sides, and then for this to actually lift off. So it got to the point that at the part where I needed the most control, which is the initial contact of the clutch, the brake wasn't fully releasing. So it was fighting against very fine clutch control and a little bit of brake still. So it would go from being not moving or not the clutch engaging to it then engaging enough to overcome the brake, and it would then go mad. Oh, lovely. The brake I've left disengaged. I actually, this Massey over here also hasn't got a brake. So having the two running in the same fashion, both without brakes, made life simpler, I think. You'll hear, I don't know if you'll hear, you can hear a little bit when this starts up. There's no starter on it, I'm just being a bit naughty and running it straight off the switch. There's a bit of a screech when it gets going normally, depending on how hot or cold the belts and that are. Little tiny screech when it gets going. This it's not in good nick. I need to get new bushes and everything made up. This, there's that much movement in the clutch there before anything happens. This is all, it's all wobbly. But now I've decided to keep it. To be honest, if I tighten that up, it'll really help. Now I've decided to keep it, so I'll put some time and effort into maximum record time up. Obviously, I don't mean to be fucking patronising, as long as everything's greased and sort of running correctly. The fine control is improved hugely. I've shimmed up these. I don't know if yours has the adjustable. I don't know if you're talking about your Goliath or if you've got Goliath or Hercules. Don't know, these guides aren't adjustable really. But I've shimmed them up top and bottom to get them as tight as I can. Without, I can't hold the camera still without tiny bit of movement in them. But I can. Depending where it is, so we can. But the foot action. Right, hopefully be able to see this. This is 1.5mm copper wire. Excuses in first. It does run much sweeter as it gets warmer. See that? Apart from I squished it there, it's now 1mm square. Yeah, mostly foot control. Foot control and well-oiled guides. The other thing is the position of the pitman. I just moved this up by, well, you can see that much. It actually slipped down. This bolt here, this nut had come loose. Slipped down over time. The higher within reason, the more gap you have down here when the top die is at the ram is at idle. Within reason, the more room you have here, the more acceleration you get. again, sorry if I'm being patronising, but more acceleration you get by the time the two dies meet. So if I was to now put something thin in there, by the time this top die has made it to the bottom, that's only from compressing the springs at the top. And to do that, it has to be going fast enough, obviously, to have enough inertia momentum in the ram to compress the springs, so it's hitting harder by that point. But it also gets a lot more thwack or whip to it. So if I put a bit of there's 2 mil copper actually now, get it going, and it's not touching at all. And I can build the speed up, so I'm actually forging quite quickly, but it's only just touching. There we go, just getting it every few blows. It does do that every now and then. Don't know whether it's sticking up here or something. It gets out of time of itself, but I'll not put the timer effect to finding out what that is. Again, it's not in particularly good nick, this. You can hear that rattle. So if you want control, fine control, lifting it up or lifting it down, depending on the work size you're doing. This one, it's got lovely, whatever you'd call that. Makes it really easy to adjust everything I do. I use a lot of tooling under this. Almost everything that I do different, I'll move that. It's just loosening off this. This isn't hammered in at all. It's just the bolt and the lock screw, or the lock nut, sorry, comes out. It's really easy to change. Not quite so easy on this one. So I now wound the springs back into about 3/4 of the way into what they were. So it's sort of, oh shit, it's dark as fuck. It's this gap here that I'm just eyeballing it off. There's this washer that actually pushes the spring. No, it's not washer, whatever it is. Just eyeballing that gap. Still a bit too angry for my liking. So I've left the pitman in the same place that it was, and I've loosened off these springs. When I got it, it actually had a broken spring, just a little bit cracked off one end, but it made me a little nervous. So it came in spare ones. Luckily, put these in. But I've actually had to compress these to get them in. They are under tension with the adjusty thing, what's what we call that, all the way out. So I've wound this all the way out. Don't know if you can see. Can't really see. But there's a little bit of tension on them. But in doing that, it has then dropped the dies. So there's that much gap. I don't know if you can see, the whole thing's kind of got a bit saggy. So if I now put, say, copper wire back underneath, that's the lightest blow I can now give. It's hitting quite hard actually. Now I might find getting a bit of wood. Travel off. This is. That's now actually hitting much harder, but with less control. Quite worrying actually. So I now got the pitman, same position, halfway between the two sort of extremes, and the springs wound in. Where you can see the gap there. Depending on obviously the length and size of your springs, it'll have an effect on things. But back again. 2mm copper wire again. See that? 2mm square copper wire, well, 1.8 and a bit. Warmish bit of 8mm round. So, don't know if you could tell that. I hope you could see the treadle down here moving. To maintain your foot in the same place, and to keep the hammer in motion, you have to get a certain amount of inertia within it. The flywheel on this is so small in comparison to the weight of the top. Now, if you look at the size of the flywheel on the back of that one, compared to the size of the top, plus the clutch, and plus that bit, that will keep itself going almost under its own inertia. So there's a little bit of stick between the clutch and the two clutch parts. It'll keep itself going. This doesn't. They do benefit from a heavier flywheel apparently, but can't be asked for that. So what you can do instead is, I do it as the top is on its way down. If you just pump every time it's on its way down, it gives just enough force for the. By the time the die hits, the cam up the top here is past the central bottom. It's on its way back already. So you can give it a little pump, just enough to make it over the top and into the next cycle, and it comes down, you give another pump and it'll make it over the top and into the next cycle, so you can maintain the hammer running, but without running at a fast enough, the speed that it has to run I don't know what I'm saying. I hope that makes sense. Been a long day. But again, hopefully. As it's coming down, just touching it, but also keeping the motion, keeping the cycle going. I hope some of that made some sense, and apologies, it's been a long day and I've probably been whittling bollocks to you. Yeah, have fun.